Oh, man, it's been a busy couple days. But alas, here we are. Here Mary is. All right, we'll get going. The second set of commandments, chapter 34. One day, the Lord said to Moses, "Cut 2 flat stones like the first ones I made, and I will write on them the same commandments that were on the 2 that you broke. Be ready tomorrow morning to come up Mount Sinai and meet me at the top. No one is to come with you or to be on the mountain at all. Don't even let the sheep and cattle graze at the foot of the mountain." So Moses cut 2 flat stones like the first ones, and early the next morning he carried them to the top of Mount Sinai, just as the Lord had commanded. The Lord came down in a cloud and stood beside Moses there on the mountain. God spoke his holy name, the Lord. Then he passed in front of Moses and called out, "I am the Lord God. I am merciful and very patient with my people. I show great love and I can be trusted. I keep my promises to my people forever, but I also punish anyone who sins. When people sin, I punish them and their children, and also their grandchildren and great-grandchildren." Moses quickly bowed down to the ground and worshiped the Lord. He prayed, "Lord, if you really are pleased with me, I pray that you will go with us. It is true that these people are sinful and rebellious, but forgive our sin and let us be your people." A promise and its demands. The Lord said, "I promise to perform miracles for you that have never been seen anywhere on earth. Neighboring nations will stand in fear and know that I was the one who did these marvelous things. I will force out the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. But you must do what I command you today. Don't make treaties with any of these people. If you do, it will be like falling into a trap. Instead, you must destroy their altars and tear down their sacred poles they use in the worship of the goddess Asherah. I demand your complete loyalty. You must not worship any other god. Don't make treaties with people there, or you will soon find yourselves worshiping their gods and taking part in their sacrifice meals. Your men will even marry their women and be influenced to worship their gods. Don't make metal images of gods. Don't fail to observe the festival of thin bread in the month of Abib. Obey me and eat bread without yeast for 7 days during Abib, because that is the month you left Egypt. The firstborn males of your families and of your flocks and herds belong to me. You can save the life of a firstborn donkey by sacrificing a lamb. If you don't, you must break the donkey's neck. You must save every firstborn son. Bring an offering every time you come to worship. Do your work in 6 days and rest on the 7th day, even during the seasons for plowing and harvesting. Celebrate the harvest festival each spring when you start harvesting your wheat, and celebrate the festival of shelters each autumn when you pick your fruit. Your men must come to worship me 3 times a year, because I am the Lord God of Israel. I will force the nations out of your land and enlarge your borders. No one will try to take your property when you come to worship me, these 3 times each year. When you sacrifice an animal on the altar, don't offer bread made with yeast, and don't save any part of the Passover meal for the next day. I am the Lord your God, and you must bring the first part of your harvest to the place of worship. Don't boil a young goat in its mother's milk. The Lord told Moses to put these laws in writing as part of his agreement with Israel. Moses stayed on the mountain with the Lord for 40 days and nights without eating or drinking, and he wrote down the 10 Commandments, the most important part of God's agreement with his people. Moses comes down from Mount Sinai. Moses came down from Mount Sinai carrying the 10 Commandments. His face was shining brightly because the Lord had been speaking to him. But Moses did not know at first that his face was shining. When Aaron and the others looked at Moses, they saw that his face was shining, and they were afraid to go near him. Moses called out for Aaron and the leaders to come to him, and he spoke with them. Then the rest of the people of Israel gathered around Moses, and he gave them the laws that the Lord had given him on Mount Sinai. The face of Moses kept shining, and after he had spoken with the people, he covered his face with a veil. Moses would always remove the veil when he went into the sacred tent to speak with the Lord, and when he came out, he would tell the people everything the Lord had told him to say. They could see his face was still shining. So after he had spoken with them, he would put the veil back on and leave it on until the next time he went to speak with the Lord. Laws for the Sabbath, chapter 35. Moses called together the people of Israel and told them that the Lord had said, "You have 6 days in which to do your work, but the seventh day must be dedicated to me, your Lord, as a day of rest. Whoever works on the Sabbath will be put to death. Don't even build a cooking fire at home on the Sabbath." Offerings for the sacred tent. Moses told the people of Israel that the Lord had said, "I will welcome an offering from anyone who wants to give something. You may bring gold, silver, or bronze, blue, purple, or red wool, fine linen, goat hair, tanned ram skin, or fine leather, acacia wood, olive oil for the lamp, sweet-smelling spices for the oil of dedication and for the incense, or onyx stones or other gems for the sacred vest and breastpiece. If you have any skills, you should use them to help make what I have commanded. The sacred tent with its coverings and hooks, its framework and crossbars, its posts and stands, the sacred chest with its carrying poles, its place of mercy, and the curtain in front of it, the table with all that goes on it, including the sacred bread, the lamp with its equipment and oil, the incense altar with its carrying poles and sweet-smelling incense, the ordination oil, the curtain for the entrance to the sacred tent, the altar for sacrifices with its bronze grating, its carrying poles and its equipment, the large bronze bowl with its stand, the curtains around the courtyard, the curtains with the posts and stands that go around the courtyard, the pegs and ropes for the tent and the courtyard, and the finely woven priestly clothes for Aaron and his sons. Gifts for the Lord. Moses finished speaking, and everyone left. Then those who wanted to bring gifts to the Lord brought them to be used for the sacred tent, the worship services, and the priestly clothes. Men and women came willingly and gave all kinds of gold jewelry, such as pins, earrings, rings, and necklaces. Everyone brought their blue, purple, and red wool, their fine linen, and their cloth made of goat hair, as well as their ram skins dyed red and their fine leather. Anyone who had silver or bronze or acacia wood brought it as a gift to the Lord. The women who were good at weaving cloth brought the blue, purple, and red wool and the fine linen they had made, and the women who knew how to make cloth from goat hair were glad to do so. The leaders brought different kinds of jewels to be sewn on the special clothes and the breastpiece for the high priest. They also brought sweet-smelling spices to be mixed with the incense and olive oil that were for the lamps and for ordaining the priests. Moses had told the people what the Lord wanted them to do, and many of them decided to bring their gifts. Bezalel and Oholiab. Moses said to the people of Israel, "The Lord has chosen Bezalel of the Judah tribe. Not only has the Lord filled him with his spirit, but he has given him wisdom and made him a skilled craftsman who can create objects of art with gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood. The Lord is urging him and Oholiab from the tribe of Dan to teach others, and he has given them all kinds of artistic skills, including the ability to design and embroider with blue, purple, and red wool, and to weave fine linen. Chapter 36. The Lord has given to Bezalel, Oholiab, and others the skills needed for building a place of worship, and they will follow the Lord's instructions. Then Moses brought together these workers who were eager to work, and he gave them the money that the people of Israel had donated for building the place of worship. In fact, so much money was being given each morning that finally everyone stopped working and said, "Moses, there's already more money than we need for what the Lord has assigned us to do." So Moses sent word for the people to stop giving, and they did. But there was already more than enough to do what needed to be done. The curtains and coverings for the sacred tent. The skilled workers got together to make the sacred tent and its linen curtains woven with blue, purple, and red wool and embroidered with figures of winged creatures. Each of the 10 panels was 14 yards long and 2 yards wide, and they were sewn together to make 2 curtains with 5 panels each. Then 50 loops of blue cloth were put along one of the wider sides of each curtain, and the 2 curtains were fastened together at the loops with 50 gold hooks. As the material for the tent, goat hair was used to weave 11 sections, 15 yards by 2 yards each. These 11 sections were joined to make 2 panels, one with 5 and the other with 6 sections. 50 loops were put along one of the wider sides of each panel, and the 2 panels were fastened together at the loops with 50 bronze hooks. 2 other coverings were made, one with fine leather and the other with ram skins, dyed red. The framework for the sacred tent. Acacia wood was used to build the framework for the walls of the sacred tent. Each frame was 15 feet high and 27 inches wide, with 2 wooden pegs near the bottom. Then 2 silver stands were placed under each frame with sockets for pegs, so they could be joined together. 20 of these frames were used along the south side and 20 more along the north. 6 frames were used for the back wall against the west side, with 2 more at the southwest and northwest corners. These corner frames were joined from top to bottom. Altogether, along the back wall, there were 8 frames with 2 silver stands under each of them. 5 crossbars were made for each of the wooden frames, with the center crossbar running the full length of the wall. The frames and crossbars were covered with gold, and gold rings were attached to the frames to run the crossbars through. The inside curtain for the sacred tent. They made the inside curtain of fine linen woven with blue, purple, and red wool, and embroidered with figures of winged creatures. They also made 4 acacia wood posts and covered them with gold. Then gold rings were fastened to the posts, which were set on silver stands. For the entrance to the tent, they used a curtain of fine linen woven with blue, purple, and red wool and embroidered with fancy needlework. They made 5 posts, covered them completely with gold, and set them each on a gold-covered bronze stand. Finally, they attached hooks for the curtain. The sacred chest, chapter 37. Bezalel built a chest of acacia wood 45 inches long, 27 inches wide, and 27 inches high. He covered it inside and out with pure gold and put a gold edging around the top. He made 4 gold rings and fastened one of them to each of the 4 legs of the chest. Then he made 2 poles of acacia wood, covered them with gold, and put them through the rings so the chest could be carried by the poles. The entire lid of the chest, which was also covered with pure gold, was the place of mercy. On each of the 2 ends of the chest, he made a winged creature of hammered gold, and they faced each other, and their wings covered the place of mercy. The table for the sacred bread. Bezalel built a table of acacia wood, 36 inches long, 18 inches wide, and 27 inches high. He covered it with pure gold and put a gold edging around it with a border 3 inches wide. He made 4 gold rings and attached one to each of the legs near the edging. The poles for carrying the table were placed through these rings and were made of acacia wood covered with gold. Everything that was to be set on the table was made of pure gold, with bowls, plates, jars, and cups for wine offerings. The lampstand. Bezalel made a lampstand of pure gold. The whole lampstand, including its decorative flowers, was made from a single piece of hammered gold. With 3 branches on each of its 2 sides, there were 3 decorative almond blossoms on each branch and 4 on the stem. There was also a blossom where each pair of branches came out of the stem. The lampstand, including its branches and decorative flowers, was made from a single piece of hammered pure gold. The lamp and its equipment, including the tongs and trays, were made of about 75 pounds of pure gold. The altar for burning incense. For burning incense, Bezalel made an altar of acacia wood. It was 18 inches square and 36 inches high, with each of its 4 corners sticking up like the horn of a bull. He covered it with pure gold and put a gold edging around it. Then, below the edging, on opposite sides, he attached 2 gold rings through which he put the poles for carrying the altar. These poles were also made of acacia wood and covered with gold. The oil for dedication and the incense. Bezalel mixed the oil for dedication and the sweet-smelling spices for the incense. The altar for offering sacrifices, chapter 38. Bezalel built an altar of acacia wood for offering sacrifices. It was 7.5 feet square and 4.5 feet high, with each of its 4 corners sticking up like the horn of a bull, and it was completely covered with bronze. The equipment for the altar was also made of bronze. The pans for the hot ashes, the shovels, the meat forks, and the fire pans. Midway up the altar, he built a ledge around it and covered the bottom half of the altar with a decorative bronze grating. Then he attached a bronze ring beneath the edge at the 4 corners to put the poles through. He covered 2 acacia wood poles with bronze and put them through the rings for carrying the altar, which was shaped like an open box. The large bronze bowl. Bezalel made a large bowl and a stand out of bronze from the mirrors of the women who helped at the entrance to the sacred tent. The courtyard around the sacred tent. Around the sacred tent, Bezalel built a courtyard 150 feet long on the south and north and 75 feet wide on the east and west. He used 20 bronze posts on bronze stands for the south and north and 10 for the west. Then he hung a curtain of fine linen on the posts along each of these 3 sides by using silver hooks and rods. He placed 3 bronze posts on each side of the entrance at the east and hung a curtain 7.5 yards wide on each set of posts. For the entrance to the courtyard, Bezalel made a curtain 10 yards long, which he hung on 4 bronze posts that were set on bronze stands. This curtain was the same height as the one for the rest of the courtyard and was made of fine linen, embroidered and woven with blue, purple, and red wool. He hung the curtain on the 4 posts using silver hooks and rods. The pegs for the tent and for the curtain around the tent were made of bronze. The sacred tent. Bezalel had worked closely with Oholiab, who was an expert at designing and engraving, and at embroidering blue, purple, and red wool. The 2 of them completed the work that the Lord had commanded. Moses made Aaron's son Ithamar responsible for keeping record of the metals used for the sacred tent. According to the official weights, the amount of gold given was 2,209 pounds. And the silver that was collected when the people were counted came to 7,550 pounds. Everyone who was counted paid the required amount, and there was a total of 603,550 men who were 20 years old or older. 75 pounds of the silver were used to make each of the 100 stands for the sacred tent and the curtain. The remaining 50 pounds of silver were used for the hooks and rods and for covering the tops of the posts. 5,300 pounds of bronze were given, and it was used to make the stands for the entrance to the tent, the altar and its grating, the equipment for the altar, the stands for the posts that surrounded the courtyard, including those at the entrance to the courtyard, and the pegs for the tent and the courtyard. Making priestly clothes, 39. Beautiful priestly clothes were made of blue, purple, and red wool for Aaron to wear when he performed his duties in the holy place. This was done exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. The entire priestly vest was made of fine linen, woven with blue, purple, and red wool. Thin sheets of gold were hammered out and cut into threads that were skillfully woven into the vest. It had 2 shoulder straps to support it, and a sash that fastened around the waist. Onyx stones were placed in gold settings, and each one was engraved with the name of one of Israel's sons. Then those were attached to the shoulder straps of the vest, so the Lord would never forget his people. Everything was done exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. The breastpiece. The breastpiece was made with the same materials and designs as the priestly vest. It was 9 inches square and folded double, 4 rows of 3 precious stones. A carnelian, a chrysolite, and an emerald were in the first row. A turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond were in the second row. A jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst were in the third row. And a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper were in the fourth row. They were mounted in a delicate gold setting, and on each of them was engraved the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. 2 gold rings were attached to the upper front corners of the breastpiece and fastened with 2 braided gold chains to gold settings on the shoulder straps. 2 other gold rings were attached to the lower inside corners next to the vest, and 2 more near the top of the shoulder straps right above the sash. To keep the breastpiece in place, a blue cord was used to tie the 2 lower rings on the breastpiece to those on the vest. Those things were done exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. The clothes for the priests. The priestly robe was made of blue wool with an opening in the center for the head. The material around the collar was bound so as to keep it from rattling. Along the hem of the robe were woven pomegranates of blue, purple, and red wool with a bell of pure gold between each of them. This robe was to be worn by Aaron when he performed his duties. Everything that Aaron and his sons wore was made of fine linen, woven with blue, purple, and red wool, including their robes and turbans, fancy caps, and underwear, and even their sashes that were embroidered with needlework. Dedicated to the Lord was engraved on a narrow strip of pure gold, which was fastened to Aaron's turban. These things were done exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. The work is completed. So the people of Israel finished making everything the Lord had told Moses to make. Then they brought it all to Moses, the sacred tent and its equipment, including the hooks, the framework, and crossbars, and its posts and stands, the covering of tanned ram skins and fine leather, the inside curtain, the sacred chest with its carrying poles, and the place of mercy. The table with all that goes on it, including the sacred bread, the lampstand of pure gold, together with its equipment and oil, the gold-covered incense altar, the ordination oil, and the sweet-smelling incense, the curtain for the entrance to the tent, the bronze altar for sacrifices with its bronze grating, its carrying poles and its equipment, the large bronze bowl with its stand, the curtain with its posts and cords, and its pegs and stands that go around the courtyard, everything needed for the sacred tent, and the finely woven priestly clothes for Aaron and his sons. When Moses saw that the people had done everything exactly as the Lord commanded, he gave them his blessing. The Lord's tent is set up, chapter 40. The Lord said to Moses, "Set up my tent on the first day of the year, and put the chest with the 10 commandments behind the inside curtain of the tent. Bring in the table and set on it those things that are made for it. Also, bring in the lampstand and attach the lamps to it. Then place the gold altar of incense in front of the sacred chest, and hang a curtain at the entrance to the tent. Set the altar for burning sacrifices in front of the entrance to my tent. Put the large bronze bowl between the tent and the altar, and fill the bowl with water. Surround the tent and the altar with the wall of curtains, and hang the curtain that was made for the entrance. Use the sacred olive oil to dedicate the tent and everything in it to me. Do the same thing with the altar for offering sacrifices and its equipment, and with the bowl and its stand. Bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance of the tent and have them wash themselves. Dress Aaron in the priestly clothes, and then use the sacred olive oil to ordain him and dedicate him to me as my priest. Put the priestly robes on Aaron's sons and ordain them in the same way, so their descendants will always be my priests. Moses followed the Lord's instructions, and on the first day of the first month of the second year, the sacred tent was set up. The posts, stands, and framework were put in place. Then the 2 layers of coverings were hung over them. The stones with the 10 Commandments written on them were stored in the sacred chest. The place of mercy was put on top of it, and the carrying poles were attached. The chest was brought into the tent and set behind the curtain in the most holy place. These things were done exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. The table for the sacred bread was put along the north wall of the holy place, after which the bread was set on the table. The lampstand was put along the south wall. Then the lamps were attached to it, and there in the presence of the Lord. The gold incense altar was set up in front of the curtain, and sweet-smelling incense was burned on it. These things were done exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. The curtain was hung at the entrance to the sacred tent. Then the altar for offering sacrifices was put in front of the tent. The animal sacrifices and gifts of grain were offered there. The large bronze bowl was placed between the altar and the entrance to the tent. It was filled with water. Then Moses and Aaron, together with Aaron's sons, washed their hands and feet. In fact, they washed each time before entering the tent or offering sacrifices to the altar. These things were done exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. Finally, Moses had the curtain hung around the courtyard. The glory of the Lord. Suddenly, the sacred tent was covered by a thick cloud and filled with the glory of the Lord. And so Moses could not enter the tent. Whenever the cloud moved from the tent, people would break camp and follow. Then they would set up camp and stay there until it moved again. No matter where the people traveled, the Lord was with them. Each day his cloud was over the tent, and each night a fire could be seen in the cloud. That's the end of Exodus. So I think we'll stop there today, and we'll pick up with Leviticus tomorrow.